My aim this afternoon is to give you a very rounded view of what guerrilla gardening is, and also who guerrilla gardeners are, which I think is very important. Who are these people who have chosen to break the law? Because, bizarre though it may seem, gardening someone's land that isn't yours and doing it without permission is technically criminal damage. I saw a report only this week of a guerrilla gardener, albeit in Dallas in Texas, who was handcuffed because she was doing a bit of weeding in some of the roadside gardens. I myself, I currently do have a clean record, but I have been threatened with arrest on one occasion. There's a silly little film on YouTube, although it's quite amusing, demonstrating, reminding us all that bizarrely this is criminal activity. However, the people doing it, I don't think are necessarily what you would think are the cliche criminals, and I think that's important. Hopefully that comes across. But let me prove it to you now, rather than telling you the conclusion. Guerrilla gardening is not this. It's nothing to do with gorillas, and I bang on about this all the time, and still even guerrilla gardeners get this wrong. There's a new group this evening, led by Tamsin Ormond, who's one of the poster childs of the environmental movement. She's standing for Parliament, she's doing some guerrilla gardening this evening, and she's launched it with a blooming grape ape. Never mind. Guerrilla gardening actually spans two very distant activities, and at one end of the spectrum you've got this. So almost exactly 10 years ago, May the 1st, 2000, Reclaim the Streets in thousands took over Parliament Square. There was a giant conga, they had lion dung, they had apple trees, cannabis seeds, and they dug up Parliament Square with the slogan "Resistance is fertile," and this was reported around the world as guerrilla gardening. And I mean, it's most definitely guerrilla. This is criminal damage, and in fact, the British soldier who did the famous Turf Mohican, which Banksy has since immortalised in some of his artwork, he was fined a few £100s. A great spectacle was created, and their point of reclaiming the streets for people, being able to do whatever you like in public places, definitely came across very clearly. At the opposite end of the spectrum, which is so intimidating, I haven't dared even try this. The guerrilla gardening movement, which began in New York, which is actually where the term was first coined, which I'll tell you more about later on, they have created spaces that look like they've been there for hundreds of years. This is the Clinton Community Garden in Hell's Kitchen, in the heart of Manhattan, which began as an illegal garden in the 1970s, and over the subsequent nearly 40 years is now an officially recognised, designated in the planning policy as green space, ultimately overseen by the City Parks Department. It took about nearly 30 years to get to that official place, but it began with guerrilla gardening, and as you can see, it's a thriving space where a very diverse group of local residents can use it. They grow vegetables, they have barbecues, etc., etc. Multi-purpose green space. It's a picture of paradise. So that's the two extremes. What I'm going to tell you about today are the bits in between, and I'm going to look at the New York story and what I've been doing in London, mostly in Southwark. I'm going to look at those in more detail, which illustrate a variety of different points about the problems in our landscape and how they might be solved. The origins of illicitly cultivating someone else's land, as I've researched it, there is a book, it actually are English, not American, although the term was coined there. You can read about him in great detail. Billy Bragg has sung about him and his movement. There's an obelisk outside the Kremlin commemorating his achievements that was put up in 1917. This is Gerard Winstanley and the Diggers, who in 1649 went up St George's Hill and planted vegetables to reclaim the common land, to deal with rising food prices, and ultimately, as Winstanley saw it, address the ridiculous and immoral, as he saw it, inequality in the landscape. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. I won't go into it today. This is actually more typical of guerrilla gardeners that I've met in the 6 years since I started it. Luke, on his own, in his local neighbourhood, this is Sherbrooke East Avenue, I think, in Montreal, has created this, where once there was just this. In Zurich, another chap on his own, similar generation, he's been planting hollyhocks around Zurich since the early 1980s. Maurice Maggi, there's a two-part documentary about him that I've uploaded onto YouTube, and you can hear his story and see the map that he's plotted of everywhere he's sown hollyhock seeds. And this, rather like Luke in Montreal, is something that the city have also acknowledged. And although they don't actively support him, they don't destroy them. And Zurich is blessed by generously proportioned tree pits that you can see here just go wild if Maurice doesn't tend them. This is Hartmut in Rotterdam. More about him later. Again, a lone activist. This is Sean in London, who's actually blind, but guerrilla gardens in his street. This is Scott in Los Angeles, who planted most of these succulents in what was otherwise a barren median strip. Along similar lines in Miami, I was sent this photograph. I think this is a case of it being more of a party than gardening, really. I'm not against this, but I've learned, and actually I much less frequently now send out big invites for mass plantings, because too many gardeners do spoil the tree pit. It gets a bit chaotic. But it is great fun. It is great fun. The Miami group, and whether it was because it became practical or not, are not sadly so dynamic these days. It's not just young urbanites, it's family fun too. This is in north-west London. You can see the kids around, uncle and aunt, all sorts of people gathering together on what was just some fairly barren shrubbery. Well, I took this photo actually. I heard about this family who had been planting wheat in an old tree pit opposite the supermarket. So, a wide range of guerrilla gardens, and in the headlines recently have been the pothole gardening. This is much more at the activist end of the spectrum. It's much more about making a point rather than making a garden that lasts very long. These probably are some of the most short-lived gardens. Pete Dungy, who's an art student at the University of Brighton, he has been doing this, and I think that one lasted about 20 minutes. This is another one. This is by Shannon. I can't remember her surname, but anyway, she's Shannon in Tijuana in Mexico. She did that one, and there's a new guy called Steve who's been in the press in the last couple of weeks who's been doing it in London as well. And yes, so I'm calling this campaign Pimp Your Pavement. I've appropriated the language of military for guerrilla gardening. I now appropriate more language to some people's horror, but frankly I don't care. This is getting the message across as I see it. Let's make our pavements more alluring places, and let's not do this. All this here we go. All this resin bonding around trees that we seem to have a love for in London. The highways department love this. It's also clean and sweepable. But it's just so bad. It's not good for the trees, and it all cracks away anyway, and it's probably terribly expensive, so let's not do that. So how can you join it? Please do, hopefully, go out there and do it. You've got the message. There's plenty of ways online that you can get involved. I could do a whole lecture about the importance of the digital space for making guerrilla gardening the more tangible movement it is today and involving people. I spend a lot of time online as well as gardening. There's Facebook groups, there's lots of them. This is the one I run. There's my website, guerrillagardening.org, which has got reports of what I've been doing and links to other people. There are lots of books, all of these ones written